So the college football playoff schedule came out, and it is not good. If I were to ask 100 people on the street, what day is college football played on? 100% would say Saturday. College football is played on Saturday. Now, I'm not one of the detractors of the national championship game being played on Monday. Like, I understand the argument, obviously, against it. The sport is played on Saturdays. So when it gets to its biggest height, you play it on a Monday. Does it make sense? No, not especially. But I also understand that if you're trying to get as many people to watch, Monday night is better than Saturday night. But the idea that 3 of the 11 games in the college football playoff will be played on a Saturday. There will be games. I'll just put the schedule up. There will be games played on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. 11 games played on 6 different days of the week. I don't know that I'll ever understand how from the Saturday before Labor Day until the Saturday after Thanksgiving, we put our college football one day. Now, obviously, there are games that are played on Tuesdays and Wednesdays on ESPN and CBS Sports Network that are MACtion and Conference USA and things like that. Yes, those 100% exist. Those don't necessarily factor into the college football playoff. Those don't necessarily factor into the bulk of college football viewing. But for the Saturday before Labor Day to the Saturday after Thanksgiving, we're locked in on college football from noon to midnight. There are games galore. And yet, when the college football playoff schedule is released, there's the first round game, there's a game on Friday night, which I understand. If you don't want games competing against each other, you're going to have to put a game on Friday night, 3 games on Saturday. I have no problems with the first round schedule because that makes sense. Now, is the NFL all pissy because the college football is trying to encroach on its territory? Yeah, and I think that's ridiculous. And I think that I think college football should just give the NFL the middle finger because I know that the NFL is powerful, and many people think that it is the end-all, be-all of television viewing, and in many cases it is. But I have to imagine that a second-round college football playoff game, depending on the brand, right? If it's Texas versus Notre Dame, I have to assume that does better than the Jets and the Jaguars, right? Maybe not better, but at least on par. And damn it, the NFL has Thursday, Sunday, and Monday. They don't need Saturday too. But that's a different discussion for a different day. The quarterfinals are the quintessential New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. Now, I think the idea in the past, the criticism of the college football playoff semifinals being on New Year's Eve has been like, hey, people still work on New Year's Eve. The idea that it is the same as New Year's Day and we don't have we don't have millions and millions of people off is true. Lots of people either work a full day on New Year's Eve or a half day on New Year's Eve. Lots of companies do that. So only having one game on New Year's Eve, I think, makes sense. Believe me, when you are a fan of a certain team and your New Year's starts by a kicker missing a field goal to not win the national championship, you might not be a gigantic fan of big-time games being played on New Year's Eve, let me tell you. Because nothing starts a bad year quite like thinking you're about to win a game to go win the national championship, and then it's the worst kick you've ever seen in your entire life. Voice of reason, voice of experience. Anyway, there's one game on New Year's Eve, which I think is perfectly fine. The issue is like that's the game that's in the Pacific time zone. Like, well, what in the world is that about? So a 7:30 Eastern kickoff is a 4:30 local kickoff on New Year's Eve. And so if you're like, hey, people don't have time off on New Year's Eve, the idea like we're going to put that game at 4:30 local kickoff where you're going to have, if you're lucky, 10 days, if you're lucky, 11 days to take the time off, get a flight out to follow your team. There's just some logistics there that just might not be the greatest thing ever to provide great playoff atmospheres for the college football playoff. The 3 games on New Year's Day, I really don't have a problem with, right? Like I think it's somewhat, I have a hot Rose Bowl take, and that is the Rose Bowl matters because we allow it to matter, and the college football allows it to matter. If the college football playoffs said, hey, Rose Bowl, 4:00 Eastern kickoff works a lot better for us than 5:00, and the Rose Bowl gave you the double birds, then you can just say like, hey, guess what? You're not included anymore, and you get the 2 best 8-4 teams. Instead, we're allowing you the opportunity to be involved in this really prestigious event. That's neither here nor there. 1-5 and 8:45 on New Year's Day is kind of like the 8:45 kickoff is just a little bit late. Like we bitch about the 9:20 tip-off for the national championship game during March Madness. 8:45 is not a ton better, especially for a sport that lasts longer than college basketball, because pretty much everybody has to go back to work on Thursday on January 2nd. So if it was like 1-4-7:30, 1-4-8 instead of 1-5 8:45, but the Rose Bowl is stubborn, fine, whatever. The playoff semifinals is where I think my biggest issue lies. You have a game on Thursday and a game on Friday. So on Thursday, January 9th, it is after the NFL regular season has ended. So there isn't a Thursday night football game to contend with, which I understand the thought process there, because you don't want to. The NFL season, by the way, ends on Saturday or on Sunday, January 5th. So on Thursday, January 9th, there is not an NFL playoff game. And on Saturday, January 11th, there will be NFL playoff games. So there's a game on Thursday, January 9th, game on Friday, January 10th. I think it would not be unreasonable for somebody to say both semifinals have to be on the same day, whether it is logistics, whether it's recovery time, etc. And there's enough time between the semifinals and the national championship game to, if somebody wasn't able to get recovered in 10 days, like eventually it's not your fault. But I think competitively, there has to be a day that the playoff semifinals have to be on the same day, in my opinion. And if that's Saturday, January 11th, then I think you have to tell the NFL, like, hey, sorry, sucks to suck, but we're playing our two of our 3 most important games on our day. Saturday is college football day. And instead, you're playing a playoff semifinal on a Thursday night, which is fine. Friday night at 7:30 sucks. For the second or third biggest game of the college football season is going to be played on a Friday night at 7:30. It's not great. The national championship game, I have really not a whole lot of problems with. 7:30 on a Monday night. I think actually it is somewhat beneficial. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So there are going to be a little extra eyeballs because people aren't going to have to be, not as many people are going to be at work as there would be on a usual Monday. Not many people will have extra time to be able to devote to the national championship game on that day. There's not rushing around, getting home, blah, 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 getting kids ready, home from school, blah, blah, blah. Whatever goes into a normal Monday is slightly altered by it being Martin Luther King Jr. Day. But on the grand scheme of things, college football is played on Saturdays, in 3 of the 11 games are played on Saturdays. Now, again, I don't have necessarily a problem with there being a full slate of games on New Year's Day, right? Because like Saturday, college football, New Year's Day is a college football holiday. There's a reason that the NFL has never really tried to encroach upon that day outside of if it falls on a Sunday. College football, played on Saturdays, played on New Year's Day. Don't have a problem with that. It's in 11 games, you're playing on 6 different days at times when people are used to you playing on Saturdays or on holidays. There's a reason the NFL gets to its playoffs and they play on Sunday. The NFC Championship game and AFC Championship game are on Sunday. The Super Bowl is on Sunday. Do you know why that is? Because the NFL plays on Sunday. So the idea that when the sport reaches its peak, that after Ohio State plays Michigan on that Saturday and Auburn plays Alabama and Texas plays Texas A&M and all of these great, awesome rivalries happen. And the sport is at its apex. And then the next week you go into Conference Championship Saturday and there are games on from noon to midnight, supposedly pitting the best teams in America against each other. Then the sport goes into, okay, we're going to play one game on Friday, a couple games on Saturday. We'll play games on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, every day but Sunday. And you get to the biggest point of the year, Thursday, January 9th, Friday, January 10th. 2 of the 3 biggest games of the year are put on days where college football isn't traditionally associated with, in basically a ploy to appease the NFL of like, yeah, but we play NFL playoff games on Saturdays. Well, sorry, sucks to suck. The college football playoff is going to be on Saturday. Should be the prevailing thought. And the NFL can eat it. I realize that's easier said than done, and I realize that ESPN has ulterior motives, that they got NFL playoff games that they're going to move everything they possibly can to put on. But if the options are you play 2 college football playoff games on a Saturday up against NFL playoff games, there's a way to make it all work. Whether it's the NFL games are at noon and 4 or 1 and 4. However you got to make it work, you got to make it work. And if it's a Friday-Saturday situation rather than a Thursday-Friday, I just think the idea that you're going to play 11 games on 6 different days of the week when college football is played on traditionally 1 is such a stupid idea for a sport that is at times run by morons. I just think it's not unrealistic to ask for fans to expect better than that. Okay, you're going to have to give up your New Year's Eve, your New Year's Day, Friday night, 2 Friday nights, and your Martin Luther King Jr. Day to pay attention to a sport that you like. When you usually watch it on Saturdays from noon to 8, and this is all East time, God's time, naturally, from noon to midnight. Instead, we're going to shift all this stuff around on you because I don't know why. It's just dumb at the end of the day. There's a reason that it's the idea of like the NFL saying, hey, we're going to put the Super Bowl on a Wednesday night because more people will watch that way. No, they won't. We're going to put the NFC and AFC championship games on Tuesday because that's when higher TV ratings are for CBS. Okay. Who cares? You make it convenient for people to watch, they'll watch. And people have made it a point to watch on Saturdays for 150 years. And yet, once push comes to shove and it's time to go to the big time, we pretend as if Saturday is this gigantic TV wasteland when it's not. But nobody asked for my opinion on it. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you know the great college football content that we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. See you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.